right, guys. Welcome back to another episode of A Taboo Life. This one's a very special episode because this is the second recording of it because the first recording, the audio was badly damaged. So my guest today was graciously inviting me back, and we also did something before this recording. So I'm going to have her introduce herself, and then we'll take it from there.
Thank you, darling. This is Mistress Magdalena from the Academy Domina, and I am a dominatrix.
That's right. She is a dominatrix, and just for shits and giggles, I never did it before, and I figure if I'm coming, if she's letting me come back to her place to do the recording or the interview, I figure I'll pay her for her time and actually do a session so I know what it's like. So I want to have you explain the process, your process, what's going on, what happened tonight, and I'll tell my side of it.
Okay. Well, we did have a somewhat short session, and it was very much an introductory session because usually when clients come to me, they have a very particular craving, kink, fetish that they're looking for, right? And with you were just curious. And so the truth is, I knew that there was a lot I could do to you that you wouldn't enjoy. So I tailored the session to what I did know about you and the fact that, you know, kink, it might be intriguing and whatnot, but it's, you know, it's not something that you're actively like desperate to have. And I didn't want to scare you either. I didn't want to do something that made you feel a little like overwhelmed.
There was a moment where I did feel, it was like a brief 5-second moment. It was when you actually had me hogtied.
Oh, right.
And you started spanking me. And a moment of panic came over me. I think it's because like, I think it's because like I'd never been in that situation before. It scared me a little bit. Like, oh my god, what am I doing?
It's really vulnerable. It's really vulnerable, and that's one of the beautiful things about it. Is the goal is to have a an opportunity to really submit, to let go. For a lot of people, it is very much a role reversal that they're looking for, and in many ways, that could be a gender role reversal, or just a power dynamic, a way to surrender, because submission is so soothing for the soul. Have someone else be in charge for a little bit and not know what's coming up.
Yeah, that's why the mindset I went to after that. It's like, you know what? Nothing bad is going to happen. just let it happen. I was still nervous because it was weird because I was like, yeah, this is like it was a new experience for me. And I had a hard time keeping up.
Keeping what up, darling? What do you mean? Make sure our listeners know what you're talking about.
Let's be adults. What do you think it means?
You had a hard time keeping it hard. Well, you know, that's the funny thing, because one, there's a lot of pressure involved with that in itself, which is a whole entire aspect of what I work with as a dominatrix. Is many of my clients come to be relieved of the burden of their penis. Because let's face it, as men, there are a lot of masculine expectations. You have to be stable and strong and not show any emotion, and your cock has to be ready and hard at all times, and it's got to be big enough.
Got to be ready to go.
And it's on demand. And otherwise you're not a man.
It has to be lock and loaded.
Yeah, so it's a really repressive and even volatile combination of our current standards of masculinity. And of course, there's a lot of conversation going on about this right now, which I love. But it is kind of a funny play, because I demanded that you stay hard.
Yeah.
Because I knew that you'd enjoy yourself more. And at the same time, it was a wee bit of a mind fuck, intentionally.
I was like, wait, what's going on?
Because, and especially when a little bit of pain is added in, you know, I like
and
to
that part
go back and forth.
It was like a little surprising.
Okay, good.
It was like
I didn't go hard on you at all, by the way. I just wanted to kind of test
you did something where I felt like, did you just put something in the hole?
It felt like that, didn't it?
Like, what the hell was that? And the whole
I
time
did not, actually. I did not, because I felt like that would be a little bit too invasive for your first
I'm like,
time.
Don't do that.
Especially since you didn't come to me for certain things. You didn't come to me for pain or any of the typical...
It's just curiosity.
Curiosity, I know. I like to play with curiosity, so I just wanted to tease you for a bit.
Yeah, it was a fun tease, especially the last 10 minutes.
You really liked the end. So maybe worship is your thing. Maybe that's kind of something that you...
No, because I got the cop a feel, basically. It's like, I want a cop a feel.
Well, you were given permission. Silly. Because consent is key.
Yes.
In every dynamic. So, did that cover what you were mentioning?
Which one?
Oh, we've kind of been all over the place.
Yeah, how did we start this off?
I was just trying to recall that. I think you were going to talk about...
I was going to ask you, tell the experience from your hand.
Oh, right, tell the experience.
Yeah. And we just started going back and forth on it.
Right, exactly. Well, this one thing I want to be really clear about is every single client, every single session, they're all completely different. It's not like there's a blueprint or a script or anything like that. I mean, sometimes with elaborate role play, there might be, a basic outline or an understanding of a script that we might play with. But really, no two sessions are alike, even with the same person. Because I have regulars that come and see me every week, and you'd think that it would get dull and it would be hard to switch things up. But the truth is, with this line of work, it's infinite. There's infinite things involved. I have so much fun with it.
All right, so how did you get involved with this? Because we already talked about this, but in the last recording, but since nobody heard it, we have to go back
it's
to
okay. I figured we were going to go through all the regular questions. My belief is that usually we are somewhat born kinky. I know at least I was. So I've been playing with BDSM since probably around age 15. And then I was part of a bondage apparel and equipment business by age 17. Because by 16 I was already making leather and rubber cuffs and whatnot out of reclaimed materials. And I remember I used to going down to Tandy's Leather and like getting a bunch of stuff and then making custom like punk rock, goth, and bondage stuff and selling them either at punk rock shows or in Ybor City briefly when I lived there, or up in New York City when I was living there in my teens. And the bondage apparel company was great because we got to go to all sorts of different shows. The Genitorturers, we vended for them often, and we'd go to different BDSM conventions and conferences. And I wasn't even 18, and nobody seemed to even care because I was a vendor.
Oh my God.
Don't ask, don't tell. So by age 19, I was up in Philadelphia in Center City, and that's where I was formally trained at a place called the Castle, the Royal Castle, which no longer exists, but that was in Center City. And that was in the late 1990s. So it's kind of been somewhat of a lifestyle for me. Although I've only recently, in the past couple of years, gone back to working as a professional dominatrix. Mostly because I'm here in Florida and there's very few dominatrixes here in Florida, especially in north central Florida. You see a lot more down south, Fort Lauderdale, Miami area.
Yeah, those are freaky people.
Freaky people. You're so funny. I would say a higher concentration of a spectrum of normal. A little bit more money, concentrations of money and creativity and just whatever tend to bring about this kind of more counterculture activities. Because up in New York City and Philly, it's fun, normal, and I have a plethora, like dozens of mistresses that I session with, do double dom, triple dom, and like champagne kink parties and all sorts of fun things. So that's one thing I really miss while being down here, is I just don't have the community like I do up north.
Yeah, when I was asking around, like when I did an interview with Mr. Sin, I think her and a couple other people in Jacksonville, the only dominatrixes out there.
And Jacksonville is a fairly large city, so yes. Well, Florida is weird anyway. I'm just gonna say that on record. Florida's weird. Yeah, but I'm a big. I believe that it's good to make the best out of wherever you are. And so while I'm here, I'm gonna have fun. I'm gonna create what I want, even though it's definitely been a very different experience opening a dungeon and doing this work down here in Florida than it would be anywhere else that I've worked.
Well, it's funny because your dungeon is in it's like in a nice office park. So it's like very obscure, and it's like I was like wondering the whole time. Like,
yes, it's very non-assuming.
Yeah, it's not assuming, and it's like, does your neighbors or your business neighbors know what's going on?
Oh.
Do they have their suspicions or they don't want to say anything?
No, not at all, because I have a completely legitimate front, and one of the neighbors is a business, so they're not even here late at night usually. The person on this side moved in just a little bit ago, and so I'm always apprehensive about what she can hear and what she cannot hear.
Yeah, because that's what I was thinking about, like what happens if you have someone there today and.
Well, I usually play music during sessions. That just kind of gets me in the mood anyway. And if it's a very loud session, I just make sure that it's scheduled at a time that I feel more comfortable. So loud sessions or anything like that do not happen late at night. And, if they're a screamer, then they get gagged. It's really that simple. Yeah. Anywhere from actual gags, and I have an assortment, or, a sock in the mouth with some duct tape does the trick. No big deal.
I just noticed the stuff on your walls. What's that fist hook for?
Oh, that's an anal hook, sweetie. That's so I can literally confine a head and a body in a particular position, because if they move, they feel it deeply inside of themselves, if you know what I mean. It's quite fun.
Aren't you afraid of
Oh, I fear nothing.
expulsion or crapping?
Oh!
I was trying to be cleaner about it, like
Poop! Am I afraid of poop?
Hey, why don't you stick it up there?
Well, I am not afraid of poop, but thanks for asking.
Because I was wondering about that, like what happens if they stick it up there and...
Okay, so one is usually when people come to see me, I know what they're wanting to experience and what they're not wanting to experience. And so there's specific parameters that I follow. And, usually if people want anal play, they let me know that. And then, of course, part of what I do is it's a lot of instruction. If I have someone who's new that's coming to me, then I make sure that they are adequately prepared and educated on how to arrive to be fully ready for the session that they're looking for. So, I have a handout on anal douching, and, all sorts of other things, shaving, yada, yada. And, depending on what they're looking for, sometimes there's longer play sessions, and then I send them with a little list of items that they need to bring with them, so that they, that I know that they are having enough caloric intake, that they've had enough protein, that they're hydrated, that everything that we need for aftercare is usually readily available here, but for any kind of specific situations, I have them pack certain things. Because on occasion I do very long sessions, 6 to 8 hours, sometimes overnight sessions, sometimes, multiple day sessions. So it just depends. So no, I'm not really worried about the poop, and it's not usually a problem. The only time it's ever an issue is with someone new, and then it's just an opportunity to educate and perhaps, humiliate and punish, depending on what they're interested in.
Okay. What's the
Nothing
surgical
without
mask
consent. That's just fun role play. I have lots of wicked, evil nurse, doctor, physician, executioner, elements.
What's your favorite costume or your favorite role?
My favorite role? Oh boy. So I'm not somebody that has favorites. And I've come to the conclusion it's because I am literally thousands of people in one. And so my favorite can change from moment to moment. But usually favorites have more to do with enthusiasm, energy levels, engagement, participation, like really being fully immersed in the session than an actual particular scenario. But if I'm to answer your question from a perspective of archetypes, I would say I really enjoy being somewhat of a torture kitty is really fun to me when I get to be a very playful sadist, because that's just me. Let's be real.
That's what you were doing.
That's pretty much what I do. And I really enjoy playing. I like doing the full head to toe leather or latex, just really absolute dominance, strict, adherence. My word is law. I really enjoy my pain sluts when they come to see me because that's therapy to me, because I get a nice release and workout usually. Sometimes I really enjoy being a beastie and not really being a furry so much, but just embodying different aspects of a very primal animal nature. I enjoy that very much. So I'll have times where I dress up as a cat or a tiger or,
It's not furries, right?
It's not furry. I have this really gorgeous, it's a nylon body stocking, but it's in tiger print. Oh, it's so hot. It's so hot. And I'm tired of hearing that beep. And so I have a medical background, so I do enjoy medical play, and I like the whole evil doctor or sadistic concerned nurse. It just depends. I would say as far as that's concerned, there's specific activities that are my favorites, but as far as the character role play, I keep it pretty fluid. I also like to embody daddy, with all of my big delicious cocks.
So what's a daddy?
A daddy? Well, me. Daddy.
Yeah, I'm confused.
Well, that's so usually those who want to come and serve daddy are my little sissy sluts who are learning to be my good little girls and to serve my cock.
So it's like more humiliation?
Humiliation, but also ownership, They're just so desperate to suck cock and to serve cock. And, I mean, who doesn't want to serve cock when it's attached to some gorgeous tits? You know what I mean? It's kind of like a win-win in general. And so for me, my daddy persona is, very seductive, very sexy. It's usually, I have this halter top that has some nice underboob action happening. It says daddy on the front of it. And, I usually wear one of my, straps with either stockings or boots and nothing else. And, just enjoy training my little sissy sluts.
Earlier tonight, you called me a cis male. What? I get confused by that. What is a cis male?
Oh, basically it means that you are a heterosexual male. Your gender identity is pretty much the mainstream one that you're assigned to as from birth, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. That makes sense.
You like pussy. You're not really into cock, right? I mean,
no.
That would delight me to no extent if you were, but I get that you're not, so I didn't even go there with you tonight.
Yeah, because I was like, you said something about a strap on. I'm like, what?
Right, I know.
Let me stay quiet for a moment.
I just wanted to see if I could make you nervous. So yes, that's what cis means.
Okay. So one thing I didn't know is started thinking about it because my shoulders got a little tight. Mm-hmm. Like, have you ever accidentally injured someone or somebody accidentally got hurt?
No, not really, because I'm constantly checking in. Mm-hmm. So injury is different than discomfort.
Yeah.
And so that's a distinction I want to really be clear about, is sometimes the goal is discomfort. And I utilize my medical training every single day to, establish parameters to make sure that there is no injury. So far, no one's been injured. I did have a poppers incident one night that was just ridiculous. But, I also got a very loyal sub out of it because he recognized how prepared I am for any kind of emergency.
What do you mean by popper?
So poppers are these, it's a liquid, stimulant. We'll call it a stimulant, though I think it's some ways it dilates and relaxes the person who's huffing it. So it also creates like an anal relaxation. So it's very common.
That's the stuff you get at the gas station, right?
I don't know if you can get it in gas stations. You can get it at sex shops normally by the register.
I remember learning about what poppers were because when I worked for Disney Cruise Lines, a couple of guys I knew were gay. They were cool guys. And they were talking about poppers. Like, what the hell is a popper? Like, this is what we used to have sex. Like, what?
Yeah, so they don't use it to have sex. It just helps their anal sphincter relax.
Yeah.
And that could be really beneficial, especially depending on how large you're taking it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, it is, it's not really toxic, but it's pretty intense. So unfortunately, I had a sub who was all sorts of tied up in an awkward position, and I had a popper's mask on his face, that one that is hanging up, but it wasn't really releasing the fumes the same way that the bottle, just straight out of the bottle. So I had him lean over the bottle, and the bottle tipped into his nose and poured down his face. So that was one of those situations where I knew he wasn't going to have injury, but I knew it was incredibly uncomfortable. It wasn't what we wanted in the scene. So I just it was the only time I've ever cut my ropes. I quickly just cut him out of there to flush it. And then kind of checked in with him until he was kosher.
Yeah.
And then we continued on. And this, this was a while ago, but at first I was concerned. I was like, oh no, like how is he going to respond to that? But he ended up becoming even more loyal because he saw how quickly I knew what to do and how to respond, and that he was cared for. And so, so to answer your question, no injuries. I'm hyper aware of these things. I have all different special props, cushions, supports, and different types of restraints for different mobility issues, because I do have a lot of older clients who either don't have the same kind of mobility, flexibility, and I do have many clients who have either had injuries or operations, and even some with disabilities. And so I have to keep that in mind whenever we're doing any kind of play. The only thing that I really need to be mindful with that is if I'm doing any kind of shibari or suspension.
What's shibari?
Shibari is the Japanese art of rope bondage. So you might have seen pictures of it. It's quite lovely.
Yeah, I've seen it before.
Shibari is not intended to be painful. It's decorative, but the ropes you feel them in many different ways, especially depending on what you're doing. So Kinbaku is, it's a similar art, but it is actually designed to be a little bit more, well, it's originally designed for torture. So sometimes I like to combine the two.
What, you said you take care of clients with disabilities.
Some. I have a few.
What kind of disabilities?
I have some, well, I have a few people who they are not able to actually be on hands and knees because they can't maneuver their leg in a particular way, or they have a rotator cuff injury. I have one client who was born with all different types of issues. So he has some deformity, And, the list goes on. I have an amputee client up north. Let's see. It just varies. And, as people age, they have a tendency to kind of, add up certain injuries that become disabilities or situations that become, it's part of the intake process for me to be very aware of what's going on with my clients. So not just psychologically and emotionally, but definitely physically. That's why on the application form, I want to not only know hard limits, I want to know physical limitations. I want to know any medications. There are times when there's certain things that I need to administer. If there is a high stress type of session, then there's always an emergency plan involved, etc. I take my work very seriously. I really enjoy what I do. I make sure that whatever I do, I am professionally prepared to handle it. And anything that's more on the risky end, there's an emergency plan involved. So, knock on wood, the only injuries anybody has ever received were consensual.
Little keepsakes.
They were desired.
Well, did you have a favorite client? Did you have someone that you no, this was a really fun one?
There's a bunch of fun ones, but like I said, no favorites. I mean, you're going to have to stretch.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm massaging my shoulder and my arm.
It's funny because since we had such a short session, I didn't really think about it. But for longer sessions, and especially with older clients, I make them do a warm-up and stretch beforehand, and it usually just looks like them serving me and doing my bidding, but it's intentional. There's intention behind it,
You stretch your muscles.
I have my way, I don't want to create
Loosen
a little
up.
Russell Simmons workout plan. I want them to just do what I say now. And the intention behind it is for them to actually warm up their muscles and stretch a bit so they can handle what's coming next. What did you ask me again?
Oh, man.
Before I
lost track.
I know, right? Too bad we can't just rewind really quick.
Nah, that's fine. I asked you if you had any...
Oh, favorite clients.
Yeah.
So, no, just certain sessions stick out. It really just depends on how the role play and the scenarios are always more fun when there is compatible chemistry and enthusiasm. Sometimes just the off the cuff, impromptu sessions can be just as fun as the very detailed, thorough, with much preparation sessions. And when they go better than hoped for, then that makes it really fun. When there's a lot of chemistry and energy and everybody's enjoying themselves really, really well, that's always fun. I think because I'm kind of isolated down here, I miss a lot of the group play that I get up north.
So what's involved in the group play?
Well, we do these kinky champagne parties where we're in upscale hotels or environments, and we have a handful of sissies that come and serve a handful of mistresses, and we just have a great time. And usually what's fun and exciting about that is because we can hype up the energy with all sorts of fun activity, because if something else is going on right next to you that's really hot and super kinky, it's going to automatically encourage you to let go and just flow with it and get into your juicy, kinkiness, right? And so usually in those parties, I can see certain subs, they basically fulfill a deeper satisfaction with their fantasy because they allow themselves to go deeper into the play. And when there's more people, there's just more opportunities. And it adds an element of either voyeurism or exhibitionism that heightens the experience as well. Because honestly, I love having people watch me have my cock sucked. I mean, that just delights me.
Just to let you guys know, it's a strap-on, not a real cock. I got first-hand knowledge that it's not. No.
Right.
She's not a transvestite.
I'm unfortunately not a transvestite. I have a beautifully perfect pussy, and I have a collection of incredibly awesome cocks. I just want to say, like, I like talking about my cocks, and the reason is because ever since I can remember, I felt like I should have had one. And that was a very frustrating experience when I was little, because I very much identified as both boy and girl in a female body. Now, as I'm older, and because I have such a deep, rich well of experience and expression to pull from, I'm pretty content with my perfect pussy and my collection of cocks, because it just adds so much variety. You know, I get to do all of it whenever I want. And it does actually stimulate me and turn me on to use my cocks. So, you know, that's a bonus. I'm down with that. But I do want to be clear, there are a lot of dominatrix that I have met personally that have had the same experience, where I know for me, I didn't feel completely 100% myself until I donned my first strap-on in my teens. And it was just like having my cock and my pussy and my perfect tits all in one. It just felt right. I was like, oh,
I mean, what?
Perfect.
Like, because I get confused what a strap-on feels like for a woman. Like,
oh, it just depends. There's so many types. There's so many.
Is there like one like there's like basically a dildo going into your pussy? Then
there is a strapless strap-on, which I love and highly recommend. I normally use that for personal play and not professional play, just because I'm a safety girl and I adhere to the law as much as possible. I do bend it a little bit, here and there, but safety first. And I definitely put my safety and the safety of my clients very high up on my list of priorities. So with that said, the strapless strap-on doesn't require a strap. You, of course, need to be bottomless in order to wear it. It has a piece that normally goes up and stimulates the inside of the internal clitoris, and another piece that often comes and stimulates the external area of the clitoris. And then, of course, it has, the dildo. So that's really fun. I like to use that a lot when I'm with my lovers. Yeah. I like to have both male and female and non-binary lovers.
So it was kind of funny to me, like when you tell me to go to the bathroom and clean up. We were both laughing because he kept slapping me in the ass. I kept laughing.
That was really fun.
I was like, why am I laughing so much?
You were moving too slow. You're lucky I didn't get out my cattle prod.
Well, I know it's like you got a bidet. I saw the box.
I do. Well, I have them on every toilet in my home.
Oh, yeah, because I bought one recently, like last month.
Right.
Like for Christmas. I'm like, man, this is a really great invention.
Right. Well, like I mentioned to you earlier, I'm in the process of remodeling my space, so there's a few things that I haven't finished, and I decided I need a bidet here. Absolutely. It's just silly not to have one. And since I grew up in Europe, I also just think it's ridiculous that Americans don't have bidets.
Yeah, like now they're cheaper. Like I got mine for $22, and it took like 15.
Wow, that's an amazing deal. Yeah, they're very much available nowadays.
Yeah,
even 5 years ago, it was hard to find them. I used to just make them out of just putting together different plumbing tubes and valves and whatnot from Lowe's. And now you can buy a kit and it installs like in just minutes. And
does it take long? Easy. It's cheap. I was talking.
I love it. It's great for, afternoon delight, a little nooner action. You don't have to jump in the shower. Just hose it all down.
Wait a minute, what do you mean by nooner action?
Nooner action?
Yeah.
When you go home for lunch and you fuck your lover?
Oh. Nooner action. I haven't done that in years.
Oh, you poor dear.
I like my bidet.
Yeah, bidets are great. They're really great. And cleanliness is next to godliness. Wash your ass.
Well, like I was, because a guy at work, he's the one that told me, like, you should get a bidet, so I got the bidet. Now I'm like, maybe I should talk to like management, like, hey, maybe we should invest in this, like actually put these in the employee bathrooms.
Yeah, it might take a minute. I don't know what's up with Americans and their paper products, but wow. Yeah. Personally, I don't ever feel clean from paper.
No, like I purposely, like I'll make sure if I go use the bathroom, like there's a sink in there,
Right.
and I'll take a wad of paper, put soap and water on it, clean it that way, then
Yeah.
clean it with a clean wet towel.
Well, a lot of people I know from the East, because the West is the only area of the world I know of that doesn't use water after I can't believe we're talking about this right now, but hey, hopefully people are taking notes, right? They will have like a cup handy, and so they'll just fill their cup with from the sink water or water from the sink, and then just wash like that over the toilet.
Yeah.
It's very common. You usually find those things on the left side of the toilet. In the Middle East, I used to travel extensively as a child with my father, and there they would usually just have like a little spigot on the left and a little, like a bucket or a can, a pail, and no paper anywhere. So you just wash, always with the left hand, and
and you eat with the right
gets the
hand.
job done. And of course, there are wipies. Long live wipies.
Yeah.
What would we do without wipies?
Yeah, when I went to Burning Man, I brought a whole bunch of them with me. And there was signs on the porta potty saying like not to use wipies. I'm
They
like,
don't let you,
that's not
right?
gonna happen.
Oh no, you're one of them.
It's hot. It's hot. I'm sweaty.
Well,
I
no,
feel
you're just not
clean.
supposed to leave them. Burning Man's very specific.
Well, no,
with your trash
it's in the
situation.
it's in the porta potty.
Still, I think, yeah. Anyway.
Well, it's in there. I'm like, it's not being. I didn't leave it in the desert. I didn't just like wipe it. Like, okay, well,
Fuck you, Mother Earth.
let the wind take this shitty rag and.
Wow. Okay, good to know. Anyway.
I can't wait. I'm going back this year. That's my goal. Like, it's going to
that
happen.
sounds fun.
But I think this time I'm going to, because the first time, well, the only time, I actually drove from Jacksonville to Burning Man.
Oh, really?
And it took me 3 days.
In your own vehicle?
Yeah, my own vehicle. So I think this time.
How did your vehicle deal with how did it handle the dust and the
I think
sand?
it did pretty well.
It did? Okay.
Especially
good.
when I found out, because I got oil change before I left. When I came back to Jacksonville, I went to a different place just to do another oil change since I drove so much. And the mechanics at the not Tire Plus. Yeah, Tire Plus. Then I put the cap back on.
Of your oil?
Yeah, so I was like, oh my God, I drove in all that dust. And good thing it's a Toyota, nothing happened to it.
Wow.
Like,
That's a testament to Toyota.
yeah, so nothing happened. I had to go back to, I think it was Tire Plus, and they gave me like a snotty attitude. I'm like, no, you go refund me for the oil because that was dangerous, especially when I took that big road trip across the U.S.
That's so crazy. All right. So, what we're learning today, girls and boys, is after you have any work done on your vehicle and your oil changed in your car, double check your caps. Oh my goodness.
You shouldn't have to do that, but yeah.
I know, right? That's why I have people that do my oil for me. My bull does my oil changes for me.
Bull.
My bull. Okay, so that's a fun thing. You're not asking, but so I'll just tell you what that means. So in this realm of BDSM, and especially with dominatrixes, femdom, etc., the word bull refers to an alpha male that a dom will actually have intercourse with. So there you have it.
That makes sense.
They're usually well endowed. They're very much embody this whole idea of alpha. And so, of course, there's all different scenarios that involve a bull, potentially, especially cuckolding scenarios. So I have a handful of bulls, and my favorite bull locally is my pit bull. That's what I call him because, he's a pit bull. He's not super tall, and he's broad, feisty, and built for fighting. This is my pit bull. He's so loyal and protective. Right. And he changes my oil for me.
There we go.
Among
That's a
other
plus.
things.
You see? He changes different liquids for you.
Oh, yeah, you're funny. He does what I tell him to. Eagerly, with a big grin on his face. Okay, last interview, you asked me all sorts of questions. In this interview, maybe I didn't go hard enough on you because you're just not focused. What are we gonna do?
What do you mean I'm not focused?
We're all over the place talking about Burning Man.
Yeah, right.
Talking about
This is a
bidets.
conversation. It was like a long date, and also too, like
It was a long day.
something happened. Well, this guy at work told me the story, and I'm laughing at it. So we have this one black guy that works with us, and the manager for that department is black, and he's kind. I don't want to say ghettoist, but he has that kind of like attitude. But he's a funny guy, and the black manager sees MBAs. He's like well educated. So there's a movie called Don't Be a Menace in South Central.
While drinking your juice in the hood.
So there's a scene where like I think the Wayans brothers walk into the grocery store.
Oh yes.
And the doorbell goes nigga. So we have a doorbell that does that chime. I couldn't believe like the story they told me. So the guy walked up to the manager because they're both black, and when the doorbell happened, he walked up to her like nigga.
Oh no!
And she started screaming and yelling at him like in front of everyone.
So she was really offended by that.
Yes, she was. But like after I heard that story, I wasn't there for it, but I was cracking. I'm like, oh my god.
It is pretty funny. Well, with the movie reference, the Wayans brothers are hysterical, and sister. Don't want to leave out the sisters. Yeah, that's a really loaded word. So many people have different experiences from it. I have to check myself every time I come back to Florida because when I'm home in Philly, West Philly, I'm the only Caucasian in my family. Because, I have my own history and blah, 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 blah. And so I was actually called nigga growing up by my big brothers, and we just didn't think of anything of it because it was a term of endearment, right? And yet it is very much a loaded word that is just not, I have to remind myself when I'm not home that I'm not home.
Well, it's like I don't get why it's such a common word.
Well,
don't
act like you don't get it. Come on.
No, I do
You
get it.
get
Like
it.
I know there's, I feel like it's the same usage as fuck. Well, fuck means different things.
It does mean different things. Now, the difference is that one very specific race of people was highly and still is highly affected by the use of this word when it's used as a derogatory racist term. And therefore, it makes it a very
that's like if you use
word.
But like if you use as a derogatory term, then that's wrong. But let's say some white guy said it by accident, he's just joking around. Like I don't think.
Well, you're welcome to your opinion, but you're also not black, so you don't really get a full-fledged opinion on who gets to use the word and who doesn't. And as far as I'm concerned, I think we definitely don't need to be overly sensitive to things, but at the same time, like I'm not a big fan of walking on eggshells because somebody is offended by something, but when you have a history, right? We can't deny history.
Yeah, I'm not saying like.
Then I think that there's some words that are just inappropriate to use in public. And I think that's what it boils down to, at least for me, because I have a very different experience of the word because that word was used throughout my life as primarily a term of endearment. And I witnessed so many horrible things where that word was used as a slur, a derogatory term that was intended to completely humiliate and debase a human being. And so therefore, we do have a responsibility of, how we utilize that word, and we need to be aware,
Yeah, but like also it's kind of confusing with that word too because I'm Puerto Rican, so the derogatory term will be spick or maybe sometimes wetback.
Well, I don't know. I know a lot of Puerto Ricans that, use... my pit bull is Puerto Rican, And he uses the word nigga all the time to refer to himself, to his siblings, to his...
My cousins in New York kept saying it.
Right.
What are you talking about, nigga?
It just depends, but really and truly, if we're going to talk about professionalism at the workplace, we already know.
Yeah, that was
already know.
That was wrong that he did it, but it was funny. It was him that did it. But like was also too it's a strange word because unlike, let's say, spick, or if you want to go or derogatory terms for different races, so like kike.
It's not the same though.
It's not the same, but it's also
like, do you think I'm going to start bawling my eyes out or start shaking and feeling traumatized if someone calls me honky or cracker?
I mean, yeah, but it's also
Peckerhead,
it's a weird
Peckerwood. See,
it's a weird word because it's still a common used word for, like you said, it has different meanings now. Mm-hmm. You hear rappers say it, you have in movies and TV and music and different type of art forms, so it's kind of like confusing. Like it's like it's so common, but it's, depending who uses it, it's a bad word.
I wouldn't even call it a bad word. I'd call it an inappropriate word because it's so loaded. Mm-hmm. It's like the word cunt. I love the word cunt, and if you look at the oh crap. What is the word? Etymology of the word?
Yeah.
The origins. Mm-hmm. English is my second language. Then you will see that it comes from this incredibly wonderful Gaelic word that means culture and hearth and like the center of a home.
Do you know what the original
we could look it up really quick on my phone if you want. But so to me, I love the word cunt. I would never be offended by it. To me, I almost wouldn't even use it derogatorily because I love the word so much. It's kind of more of like a, it's something special. But other people find it to be quite offensive. So it just depends. Like communication, language, just like fetishes, kinks, and whatnot, they're all so individual to the person because they're based on our unique experiences.
It's like, know your audience.
Know your audience. Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's not like it's bad to use that word because it really depends on not just context, but environment. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, obviously don't do it at work.
Yeah.
I can't believe, I'm still laughing every time I think about it. It's like, it's because it's him. He's such a funny guy.
Right.
He got chewed out. Got screamed at by the manager.
It is kind of funny when people are just too dumb for their own good.
And he's just quoting a movie too.
Right. And it's such a funny movie. And that whole convenience store scene is just...
My favorite scene after that is the whole, the nuke scene.
Yeah.
Like he's like, I forgot what he says, but like he's like playing with the remote and the nuke is going back and forth, like aiming at.
I'm going to have to watch that movie again. I don't think I've seen it in like 20 years.
Yeah, I have to rent it again too because I forgot how... we watched Scary Movie last week.
Oh, really?
And I forgot how funny... I
haven't seen that in like 20 years either.
I forgot how funny it was.
It's pretty funny. It's
like that humor that was like because I remember seeing it as a kid and then then like we watching it as an adult. I'm like, oh my god, the humor.
Right? Yeah, that could be really fun. I'll put that on my list. I think we kind of had like a little list of movies that we hadn't seen in a while, and I'm Gonna Get You Sucker was one of them. None of us had seen in over 20 years. We're like, oh, we gotta watch that. Yeah, I've been having a really good time watching some of my favorite movies from the 80s and early 90s.
Yeah, sorry.
And they know in living color, every single episode is available on YouTube.
Oh, no shit.
I know. That was fun. I had to revisit those.
So, guys, we're going to go into the question part of our interview. Usually we go a little bit longer, but it is getting late, and I have to drive back to Jacksonville.
Because I do not have a portal yet.
All right, so anyone new to the show, these questions are basically psychological questions. They're fun questions. Some of them are serious. The purpose of these questions is to show different sides to the person, to show empathy. The reason why I ask these questions is because I have different people from different backgrounds on the show, different opinions, and you're not going to agree with everyone's opinions or their lifestyle, but you can still relate to another person. So this is the reason why I ask these questions, so you can see a different side to that person.
so that even if you think I'm a complete freak, you can see that I'm also quite a sweetheart when I want to be.
Until she starts yelling at you because you're moving slow. You're crawling slow.
Oh, you'll
crawling
move
slow.
quicker. You'll be all right. And you'll get the job done. You will focus.
I couldn't stop laughing because you kept slapping my ass. Like, come on, move faster.
That was so much fun. I wasn't slapping your ass. I was kicking you.
Or you were. I thought you were slapping my ass. You're like,
I was being
move.
so gentle compared to what I could have done.
Move. All right.
What do you got for me?
Okay. If you were arrested and your family and friends were not aware of what you were charged with, what would they assume you were what would they assume you were arrested for?
Oh my goodness. Well, oh gosh. I hate these kind of questions because I need to project, right? So I guess the first thing my friends would probably think of is that it had something to do with my career, my work. I don't think that my work is very risky, but also, because I stay within guidelines with the law and I practice, very safely. And I like to set things up so everything's very confidential, private, respectful. I can't imagine what I could actually get arrested for in this realm, but I would think that they would jump to that conclusion. Secondarily, probably something that has to do with weed. Although hopefully that won't be an issue in the near future. Decriminalize cannabis.
It's like I still have to get mine illegally.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Support legal marijuana. Everybody, if you're smoking it and you're still buying it from your scuzzy little young dealer around the corner, that's fine, but go ahead and get your prescription card and support the legalization so that we can really, truly decriminalize it and not have to worry about stupid charges like cannabis-related charges. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's
other than that, unless it was some kind of self-defense vigilante shit, because that could probably happen. People piss me off, and I am literally a dom in every area of my life. It just works better that way. Yeah.
It works better when I'm in control.
Exactly. So evidently, of course, powerful women deserve to be in charge. They need to be in charge. Life is so much better when they are in charge and when they are happy. So make sure you please the powerful women in your life. Or suffer the consequences.
Okay.
But I don't get arrested, by the way. Let's be really clear about that. Cops love me. Love me.
That's why. Remind me before we go, so I can show you about the handcuffs.
Oh, yes.
I'll show you on Amazon the key you need to buy.
Okay, perfect. And I know I have a lot of cop friends in this area, so I'm really not worried about being arrested. I'm not basic like that.
All right. If you could change anything about the way you were raised, what would it be?
Oh my goodness. I don't want to say everything because I'm really grateful that I was raised overseas and that I was able to experience the world and different cultures. But definitely my home life was incredibly toxic and abusive, and I would change my mother. I would love to know what it's like to have like an actual mother, one who cares and hugs and holds and cooks for you and stuff like that. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'd change my mom. And other than that, I would have changed the way I reacted to certain scenarios. But hey, no regrets.
No regrets. You're here. You have a good business. You got to smack my ass tonight, so
life is good.
Faster. Do you have a secret hunch on the way you will die?
Oh, I'm not going to ever die, darling. I'm immortal. When I was younger, I romanticized the idea of dying alone in the wilderness and just being eaten by nature. Having a mysterious, hermit death. I'm okay with that. I definitely also really enjoy the idea of living to be like 108 and dying peacefully in my bed or in my garden, whatever. Or like an old dog just wandering out into the field. I definitely hope I don't die in a hospital. That just sounds horrible to me. But I don't really care. I don't have a fear of death, and I don't really ponder death too much anymore.
That's good. The whole hospital thing does freak me out. I remember when I was a cop, I had to go to into this nursing home that was in my beat a lot. It was like a affordable nursing home, and these are the people that are on their last leg. And
where were you there? Oh, on your beat. Oh, now I hear you.
Yeah,
okay,
on my beat.
Got it. It's a sad, very lonely, sometimes incredibly just, so we'll just use the word sad place. Sad places indeed.
Yeah.
I spent some time in a nursing home when I was a child because my grandparents owned one. My parents worked for them temporarily, so I have some very early, very bizarre and probably highly inappropriate memories from the things that I witnessed while practically living in a nursing home as a toddler. Yes, so I get it.
One thing is, like, I hope if I get old, I go to that nursing home, what is it, South Park, Florida, where all the senior citizens are having venereal diseases.
Right, because they're all just...
like, fuck it, we can't get pregnant.
Right. You can get syphilis.
We don't care.
You're going to die anyway.
That's curable.
It's pretty funny, actually. My father's running joke when I was younger, it was like, don't ever put me in a nursing home, just hand me a loaded 45. I'm like, okay.
Thanks, Dad. Can we go back to playing Barbies?
Yeah. Well, no, I played with Barbies, don't get me wrong. My Barbies liked to fuck. But I also really like to play with guns and Hot Wheels and Star Wars, and no one could climb a tree better than I could. I loved playing war games as a child. So good. I still love playing war games. My inner child. Yeah, I still climb trees.
Still a child at heart.
I'm still a child at heart. I mean, I believe personally that we are still every single age we've ever been. As long as we don't forget that we are. You're only so old as your back is flexible. So do your yoga.
Yeah, I need to start doing that again. My knees are starting to hurt.
Yeah, you're too young to bitch about your knees.
Okay, what conspiracy theories do you believe in?
Oh, I'm really big into God, what's the term for it? Because I don't like to listen to the mainstream bullshit about it, but it was a research topic that I dove into for almost 2 decades. Our extraterrestrial origins on this planet, and how involved other, I don't even want to call them life forms, because as far as I know, the Anunnaki were somewhat human. But I really like the whole ancient civilization / space travel connection. And I dove into Zecharia Sitchin's work for a couple decades when I was starting at a pretty young age. And a lot of that came from, like, I can go out there on a wild limb right now if you really want to. But I started channeling when I was really young. I didn't know what it was about. It was kind of scary. I didn't have anybody to talk to. But by the time I was in my later teens, I was making connections with very wise, experienced people in the astral projection and just metaphysical realms in general, and receiving information that helped me understand that I wasn't not, in fact, insane. But through that, I started having really intense, beautiful past life memories that really got me going on research. And then I realized that I remembered things that I couldn't have possibly remembered because, if we look at time as being linear, then that would be impossible. And from there, I just kind of got really into that research. Conspiracy theories. I mean, I'm not really into conspiracy theories. I feel like there's truth and then there's mainstream information. I don't argue with people who are really caught up in the academics of stuff because I don't like not being taken seriously. And there's a part of me that is definitely an intellectual and that dives deep into research. So I'm careful about my sources. I'm multilingual, so I like to get information in other languages as well. And I don't know. I just think it makes sense. As far as political conspiracies, I don't call those conspiracies. I just think that there's a lot more going on than people are willing to pay attention to. And also our media is owned by those who are in power.
Yeah.
So there you have it.
Do you think Epstein killed himself?
Epstein did not kill himself.
Everyone's like,
hello.
Like, everyone sees that, like, everyone in America, actually agrees on that. Like, whoa. He did kill himself.
Facebook was really fun for a while there with all the memes. And one of my bulls was, like, really into it. So I was sending him all the fun Epstein memes that I was finding. And I was like, okay, share away. Yeah, no, there's, that's a whole nother conversation for another time.
All right. When was the first time you fell in love, and how did it happen?
Well, the whole idea of falling in love is so subjective. Mm-hmm. Because usually what it is it's a chemical reaction to endorphins. And the endorphins can come from either arousal, or at least that's a part of it, or from a stimulation of connection, which releases oxytocin, right? So I'm just kind of a bit of a cynic at this point in my life. And I understand how we respond to chemicals in our bodies and our brains, and almost everything's a drug. So the idea of falling in love is really, it's like a chemical reaction that is like a drug. We have dependency, we have withdrawals, we have highs, we have crashes, etc. I would say, I don't know if I've ever even been in love. I've said that before in my life, but in retrospect and what I know now, I'm just kind of like, I was responding chemically to that experience. Who knows what that is? And love is a really broad term anyway, right? And the English language only provides one word to describe, to define love, whereas many other languages have multiple.
What, love for your friend, love for your pet?
Right. Love for your family, love for your spiritual teacher. There's like a whole realm of bhakti. And there's also tantric love, erotic and romantic love, etc., etc. So, I don't know. I thought I was in love in high school. I had this really adorable punk rock dream of a relationship. He was a, sponsored skateboarder and guitarist in a band. Guitarist. And he was my best friend. And we fucked like rabbits. It was great. We went on adventures together. So I thought I was in love with him. And what happened? Nothing really happened. I was about to move, so he cheated on me with this white trash girl, and I keyed his car because, I was in high school. And it was heartbreaking, but I moved and my whole life changed anyway, so whatever. And ironically, we're now Facebook friends. We found each other like 2 years ago on Facebook through another mutual friend, and then we talked on the phone a couple times, and it was like, oh, cool, no big deal, great. So water under the bridge. He's in a band, he's, pretty underwhelming.
He's pretty underwhelming. Man, what a loser.
I don't want to say that because, he's still pretty cool. Like, it was just weird to like break up and not have any kind of good communication, like have this like weird animosity and hatred for each other for decades and then reconnect and be like, oh, that's cool. Oh, you're a parent. That's cool. All that good stuff. All right, next.
He's still in a band.
Yeah.
What are your deepest held beliefs?
Oh, Jesus. Well, Christianity isn't one of them. No. Deepest held beliefs. That's right. I remember this from last time. Well, I'm not a fan of religion. I think it's just another way that people give away their power and are conditioned to deny their intuition. And actually, I think it impedes a deeper connection with higher self, or source, or God, as people would call it. So, and I'm not an atheist by any stretch of the imagination. I would say the best way I could summarize my beliefs is by, bringing it back to my title as High Priestess. I follow universal law to the T. It's non-negotiable. It should not ever be compromised. And I feel like that summarizes my morality and my values on many levels. Because to obey universal laws, to have integrity, we do not harm, nothing without consent. I'm very, very crystal clear about that as a dominatrix, because I know that there is some abuse of universal law and consent in the realm of BDSM. Some people don't quite understand the responsibility that comes with having power. So yes, universal law. If anybody's interested in that, you can always look up like the 11, laws of the universe or whatever. I'm sure there's tons of information on Google, but it's the law of reciprocity, a law of attraction. Really what it boils down to is we have certain balances in the universe, certain responsibilities to uphold that balance. And if everything is based on frequency, vibration, then we know that whatever we're sending out, whatever frequency we're currently tuned to or in alignment with, is exactly what we're going to get in this holographic universe as an experience, both internal and external. So as above, so below, as within, so without. All that rises must converge. I could probably go on with all these different sayings that summarize my beliefs. But yeah, we'll just say that I follow universal law and I do not compromise it one bit. And that works well for me. It allows me to manifest fluidly, frequently, and with great joy. The universe is my sugar daddy.
What was the most trying moment in your life?
Oh, well, I don't know. I mean, I've had many. There's so many intensely traumatic, life-changing experiences I've had. I was on the streets as a teen, and I overcame drug addiction at a fairly young age in my teens. That was very trying at the time. So at that time in my life, that was one of the most trying things, was kind of shifting gears and being able to take care of myself and learning how to, to handle the very dangerous environments that I lived in, which ironically were not nearly, they were still safer than my home environment, because that's typically what happens. When I was, was I still a teenager? Maybe at the very end of my teens, my best friend hung himself in my home while I was there, and I found him, and that was very trying. And at the time, that was the most trying thing that I ever went through in my life. And since then, there's been so many more. I have literally lost everything overnight multiple times. And at the time, it felt impossible. And now in retrospect, I'm like, yeah, I'm a bad bitch. I can build an empire out of nothing but the rubble of my former life.
Rubble.
Watch me.
The phoenix.
Yeah, like bring it. So, at the time, these things feel impossible, but we get through them. I've had a child with cancer. That felt impossible. And, now I'm dealing with having a child with special needs. That sometimes feels like, what the fuck? But in retrospect, they were all gifts. So I don't know. I'm sure there's even more coming. I'm going to be faced with things that I never imagined that I'd have to live through and endure. And it'll feel impossible, and I'll get through it, and then I'll be like, oh, great. The lessons of adversity are many. So I don't know. I personally, sometimes I feel like a badass because I've lived through some crazy shit. And because of it, I'm just not afraid of anything. Really. I've seen people murdered right in front of me. I mean, I've so much. I was involved with gangs from age 13 to 15. So that came with it a whole lot of experience, things that are embedded in my memory. So yeah, we'll just say it ain't my first rodeo. And I think it's a good reminder to know that really horrible things happen to everyone, and we make it through. Somehow we are incredibly resilient as human beings, and we survive. And hopefully we're able to actually take what we learned from adversity, from things that we didn't think we were going to live through or didn't want to live through, right? And we're able to apply that into our lives and increase our overall capacity to not only find gratitude in every moment and to appreciate everything, but to also know that, we're in this together. No man is an island, is that saying, but what that really means is we don't become ourselves by ourselves, and literally we cannot survive in isolation. So we learn what we can, and then we help those who, haven't quite learned it yet, I suppose.
It's a good outlook you have, especially what you just said about the trying life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I mean, who am I to complain? I was, I've been raised in a first world country my entire life. I don't sweat the small shit. I remember how many of my friends when I was younger living in Germany right after the fall of Yugoslavia, so many refugees. And even now, Germany's filled with refugees and the world is filled with refugees. We don't see them as much in this country, but I'm not isolated to just this country. So I'm hyper aware of what people endure on a regular basis and how incredibly spoiled we are. We get to take a fucking hot shower every day and sleep in soft beds every day. Mm-hmm. I remember what it was like not to have either of those things. And yet there's people who live their entire life without those things. So I just try to remind myself of that whenever I feel like, like I have something to complain about. Mm-hmm. I check that quick.
Yeah, and be grateful.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. For everything. Because we have so much leverage and power, and if we're not exercising that, that's what we really need to be frightened about. Wasting opportunities, wasting privilege.
It really is a beautiful outlook to have, though. Just be grateful. Just to not relish in all the people suffering, but just understand that it could be worse for you.
Oh yeah, perspective is everything. And this is, an idea of mine that I know irritates the crap out of a lot of people who don't want to break out of their victim consciousness. They don't want to take responsibility for their lives. But I just derailed my train of thought. But really and truly, I really did. What were we just talking about?
Having that perspective.
Perspective. Thank you. Perspective is everything. Mm-hmm. So, all I really need to do in any moment when I feel like things aren't going well for me is I just need to get checked and be reminded that it could always be worse. It could always be worse. And I love hearing those stories of people who have overcome like really intense things because I need that reminder.
Or people who made bad decisions and still bounce back up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. The recovery. And, it can be hard. I know, I'm still dealing with some the long-term effects of making decisions unconsciously. But yeah, we're all doing our best at any given moment.
So the last question I'm going to ask you, it's a question I ask everyone. It's a serious question, and it's a two-parter. What is the worst thing you have ever done in life, and what is the best thing you've ever done in life?
I remember this. The worst thing I've ever done. So yes, I'm a sensual sadist, and I really kind of get off on that. But I don't think that I have intentionally harmed anyone, out of spite and malice.
Yeah.
And not just because it's consensual play. It's different. That's not harm. That's just, the spectrum of pleasure and pain. So I would say the worst thing I've ever done was probably all of the self-sabotage, self-loathing, self-abuse that I engaged in when I was younger and earlier in life, that just came from, my upbringing and conditioning. I was taught to feel quite worthless. And I bought into that for a while. And so I did a lot of harm. I think the worst thing I did was deny myself, sabotage opportunities for success, to listen to the horrible things that my parents would say to me about me and believe them. It was probably one of the worst things I've ever done because it held me back immensely. I had many opportunities when I was younger. Had I had more confidence in myself, had I had any support whatsoever, I would have done really well. And instead, those opportunities were lost. So I would say definitely the worst things I've ever done was deny my own power, deny my intuition, and deny my truth. And then the best things I've ever done? I don't know. Gosh. I'm hoping that I am planting seeds for a forest, a legacy of a forest in the future that, every day I'm doing something that is helping other people. I raised children. I got another beautiful email from one of my regulars who just went on and on about how much I'm helping his mental health. Another one of my regulars let me know after the holidays we were doing a special burning bowl ceremony that I saved him, that him coming to see me actually saved him. And so with my work, I like to think of all of it as somewhat therapy. Occasionally, it's just for fun. But usually those who are coming to see me, that need to see me, it's definitely therapeutic for them. There's a lot of healing work involved with this realm. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that and to also, be open to understanding that more. I have veterans with PTSD that come to me, and through bondage and play and hypnosis and meditation, they're no longer on their anxiety medication. Oh, now I know what I wanted to say earlier. That was for a previous question. My unpopular belief.
Oh, okay.
And then my unpopular belief that I wholeheartedly believe is that anxiety and depression that stems from anxiety are literally just another form of self-absorption. And if we can step outside of our own perspective long enough to see what's really going on in the whole scheme of things in the grand wide world, if we don't feel blessed, then we're not paying attention. So, so the best thing, I would say the best thing is just every day doing my best. I have a lot of experience. In life, I hit the ground running at a very young age and went hard. How can we compare one thing to the other? Even when I was on the streets as a teen, I was building community gardens and vacant lots, and we were growing food for people, and we were going down to the docks, and I'd flirt with the guys down there and get food donated so that we would feed, over 50 families every week in West Philadelphia for Food Not Bombs. And then, I was trained in the medical women's health arenas, and I got to go to third world countries and deliver babies and do emergency care, and that was very rewarding. And I've worked in clinics here helping women who are Baker acted while pregnant, because of addiction and whatnot, helping them be prepared for their transition to motherhood as best as possible. And I've fostered kids and had them, taken them out of really horrible environments and given them opportunities. And I don't know, the list goes on. It's like every day we have an opportunity to do something helpful. And I think that's the best anyone could do, is keep paying it forward. But I think it's silly to try to compare one thing as better than the other. Really, it's all about the accumulation of, working together to help one another. Because, believe it or not, if we don't help one another, we all kind of die. We forget this because we live in such an easy world nowadays where you just go to the grocery store. You don't have to participate in the harvest and deal with
Go hunting.
with famine. Yeah, or hunting parties, that come back empty-handed and have to report that to the entire village. We don't deal with that anymore. So it's easy for us to forget how important community is and how we're all interconnected, whether we like it or not.
Well, I want to thank you for letting me come back here, do the interview.
Get naked.
Get on your knees.
On your knees, eyes to the floor.
I'll put your link on episode description so you guys can find her.
Ooh, come find me.
So if you're interested in doing a session, you can check out her prices and
if you dare. You can also follow me on Twitter. I'm not super, super active on it, but boy, do I have some good stuff to share, so. Meow.
Thank you again. Really appreciate the interview and the fun.
Did you have fun tonight?
I did. It was fun. It's interesting.
I did go gentle on you. I was like, oh, I don't want to traumatize him or scare him off. I thought it was hilarious. I want to add this so that it's on the record. There was one moment of your session where you actually thought, because you were blindfolded, you couldn't see, but you thought what?
Oh, is that your mouth? I didn't hear anything for a while, and I felt that, oh.
I did something to him because I have all sorts of fun toys, right? Because that's my job. And he thought I was sucking his cock. How funny is that? Isn't that great, though?
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that was happening.
Yeah. Well, that's the beauty of imagination. That's the beauty of the fantasy. Yeah. Yeah, I don't switch professionally ever, ever, ever. But isn't it fun to just have that momentary feeling?
Like, what's going on?
That Mistress Magdalena could possibly be going down on you right now. Oh, my goodness. Woo! That's one for the record books.
All right, and on that note, don't forget to check out the other parts of the website. And if you're interested in my book, which you should be, The Maledicts Blue and Glass, which is actually a lot of people are buying now. I'm excited about that. There's a link on the website where you could just buy it through Amazon, the physical or the ebook copy. And that's about it. So you guys have a good day, and thanks again for listening.
Bye now.